Welcome to the Leadership Surgery, where we operate on your biggest leadership challenges. You share your pain points anonymously if you prefer, and our surgeons will diagnose and dissect before offering recommended treatment. Scrubbing in today, we have Anthony Taylor. Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon, Paul. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. Quick would you rather for you, as always, such as the standard. Would you rather always have a car full of petrol or a phone full of battery?
Well, if we could swap it for diesel, because that otherwise could be a bit problematic. I'm going to say car full of diesel.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Because I just think, you know what? I'm getting more and more my putting my phone away and can't be bothered with it and all the distractions that brings. But actually, sometimes just love going for a drive and being able to go places. So
Yeah.
car full of diesel, Paul, for me.
Nice. I like it. The cost of diesel, of course, as well would be nice to cover, wouldn't it? Sally Bryce. Good afternoon, Sally.
Good afternoon, Paul. Hello. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Would you rather be able to, I love this one, take back anything you say or hear any conversation that is about you?
Great question.
Well, they're both tempting. Do you know what, though? I don't know if I could cope with what people might say. I heard someone say once, like, what other people say is none of your business. And having put in my foot in it many times, definitely probably go for the take back.
I think I'm with you there.
Ignorance is bliss, isn't it?
It is. I mean, wouldn't you just tie yourself up in knots?
100%.
Knowing, I think I'm with you. Great. Thank you, Sally. And good afternoon, Dan Finn.
Good afternoon, Paul. Good afternoon, Sally. Ant, how is everyone?
Good.
All good. Good to see you, Dan. Would you rather only eat pizza for a year, so just pizza on the menu, or not?
Just there's no way. Whatever's next, just eat pizza for the year, mate. That's fine.
I was going to say, or not eat pizza for 10 years.
Oh yeah, definitely. Eat pizza every day. Different. You can have different toppings.
You can. You can fold it so it's like a flatbread calzone type thing as well.
Yeah. So dead easy, mate. Move on.
No fruit.
I like pineapple. No, I like pineapple on a pizza. Have a pineapple pizza. Yeah. I'm not. I'm a very inclusive chap, so I will accept pineapple on pizza.
Okay. Fair enough. I think I'd probably go with the set. I don't think I could go without pizza for 10 years.
No.
And I'm not interested in trying either. Just before anyone contacts me and says, I will sponsor you, I'm not doing it. Not doing it. Sorry. No, it's not happening. Okay, let's check in our patients and find out what's happening for them, and we can discuss those symptoms and hopefully offer some treatment. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicola. That's not their real name. And I work alongside someone who is excellent in so many ways, but also openly avoids or deprioritizes others. Harry, not his real name, has a very casual attitude, which sometimes I envy. He'll say, that's not really my thing, or you're better at that than me, so you take it. And I find it extremely frustrating, especially when I pick up the slack and it impacts me getting my things done. Our line manager hasn't addressed it, and I'm cautious of raising it because I don't want to seem petty or confrontational. How do I deal with someone who does some of the job brilliantly, but not all of it? Thank you in advance. Nicola. Well, thank you, Nicola, for submitting this. Some great things in here to consider, aren't there, about I think peer-to-peer relational things and possibly also just how we approach our working day and the tasks that we have to do, all sorts of things. Let's discuss those symptoms. What is coming out here? What are you drawn to by the things that Nicola has shared that you think warrants some attention? Dan, what's on your mind?
First of all, this is a tough one, right? Because they're peers, I take it. And so it's always tough. It would be dead easy for us to just say, "Oh, this has got given feedback." That's such an easy thing to say, but it's much tougher when you're peers. I think, but before we get into that, the first thing that sticks out for me is it's really tough when someone who you work with doesn't live up to the standards of the job and the role and expectations, but also your own standards. And I think there's a bit of that going on here with Nicola. Like Harry's not living up to what she expects and her expectations of the role.
And is it fair for her to impose that on others, though? Is it fair for Nicola to have this standard? Let's just say she holds a very high standard, which may be too high for Harry. I mean, is that something that we ought to consider?
Perhaps, but I don't think it's a bad thing that she has got high standards, if that is the case in this, because your high standards will bring other people up. I'm a firm believer of that. It's whether or not their line manager also thinks it's this and
acceptable standard,
an acceptable standard, and it's the standard of the role. So I think there's some of that going on there for me, where there's, and I think that comes out in her frustration, where the sense I guess is Harry's not delivering to the standard which is expected.
Yeah, I mean, Nicola's used the phrase of, he's very casual, but he quite openly is avoiding or deprioritizing others. Sally, what about you? What do you think?
I love the sound of Nicola. She sounds like my kind of girl. That's what I want to say first off, because I think this is a very easy situation to sidestep and just think, do you know what? Okay, she has spoken to the manager, not addressing it, but I'm not making it my issue. I'll kind of crack on. And so much I see these days of people not wanting to have these type of conversations, particularly as you pointed down that the power dynamic is different here because you're on the same level as somebody rather than you've got, some of that power when you're a line manager. And we don't know all the context with Nicola, but the very fact she wants to tackle it, she's got high standards. I would want her on my team.
Yeah.
So, and I think she's been very balanced, but she hasn't kind of really dissed Harry in the way that she's summarized him. She does acknowledge he's really good at some stuff, but it's his
she's actually
attitudinal.
She's also said that she does kind of envy that element of him being able to, can I say, paraphrase, not care about some things. And that is a positive trait, isn't it? Not caring about the things that you should not care about, I suppose, is a really positive trait for leaders, any individual, isn't it? If you can identify the things that you should not get wrapped up in.
I think this is why I like Nicola so much, because I probably feel a lot like Nicola and have come across a lot of Harry's, and probably I take myself and things too seriously. And so I feel it's very relatable for me, because you're absolutely right. When is good enough okay? And it puts a lot of pressure. Maybe that's, as a recovering perfectionist, it's hard to let go of some of that stuff. And you're smiling. Where are you on this?
Yeah, well, I can see what you're coming from, Sal. Absolutely, and part of me thought, absolutely, I agree with that. And then I thought, let's just play devil's advocate for a minute, as is my mood sometimes. And I just thought, you're right, we don't know all the context. So could it be that Harry is just not doing the stuff that doesn't add value? But in Nicola's eyes, that's still part of the job, and it might be. But I came to the kind of the Eisenhower matrix of, what's urgent, what's really important, what do you delegate, and what do you just not do? And maybe in Harry's eyes, some of what he's not doing is what he should be delegating or just not doing. And he's focused on actually worthy performance, doing what moves the needle, because we don't know what line of work they're in.
I wondered that as well. I wondered that, and whether there was hence me asking the question about, again, devil's advocate with Nicola's high standards, what needs to be explored here, surely, and Nicola needs to do it perhaps as self-reflection first, is, well, what are these things that Harry is not doing or takes no interest in? And how much do they matter? And when I say how much do they matter, not how much do you like them or how much do you personally feel that they matter, but more about how do they align with goals, objectives, the things that the team exists to achieve. If it aligns with those, fair play, right behind you, Nicola. I'd be saying, actually, we need to hold Harry to account here. However, if it's not those things, then perhaps there needs to be a bit of leniency, because the way that I work won't be the way that you work, and we won't always see eye to eye or be keen on doing the same things with the same level of priority.
The cynic in me, though, says, is Harry just picking and choosing what he wants to do? So he's picking the good stuff, which he's good at. And that's where he's getting probably a little bit of recognition. But the stuff which he is saying, oh, no, you're better than me at that, is that just, I don't want to do that. That's I probably could do it, but that's not my bag. That's where the cynic in me is. But you're right. It could be that. It could also be the points you two just raised. And actually, that then comes down to, if we're talking about goals and alignment, are the team aligned on what they need to achieve? And where does that responsibility sit? Because that doesn't, for me, that wouldn't sit with Nicola. I think it probably sits with Nicola to challenge back to a line manager if she's unsure of what the team should be doing. But that's down to leadership around making sure everyone's in the same boat, trying to make it go faster.
Okay.
Feels like there's something missing there, doesn't there? Because you're right, it could be either end of the scale, and we don't, in many of these situations we don't know all the context, but something is lacking around clarity, isn't it? There isn't that clarity. And to your point, I think it's great points around kind of what's prioritized, because again, I know when I was in kind of the leadership space in the corporate world, we'd have lots of ambitions, we'd have a 5-year plan or things that we wanted to deliver, but we'd have to break that down into, what are we going to focus on over the next 6 months? What are our non-negotiables? And I don't know what level of detail they've got into, but it sounds like maybe there's some, I think this is important, whereas Harry doesn't. And we need to iron that out, don't we? So, and again, assuming from the fact that the line manager hasn't really reacted, maybe they haven't got that strong leadership from above. So, there's another question. What do you do when you haven't got a strong line manager in some of these areas of clarity? What do you do next?
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
And so not just about the what, but also the how we do things is something which needs to be questioned and considered, isn't it? With what Nicola's raised.
Yeah. And to Nicola's point, she says she's not, she doesn't want to raise it because it's not petty or confrontational. But, leadership's a mindset. It's not a position. So it shouldn't stop her. If she really believes, and to your point, Paul, about having done that self-reflection bit, actually, no, this is really important that it gets done. And here's the impact of me having to do it, Harry not doing it. Then actually that then comes down to, well, what's her first protocol? It's to probably pick it up with Harry. With some of the feedback things we talked about in the past about actually, when you do this or don't do this, this is the impact, and have a kind of upfront conversation with it.
That's a great point. Yeah, Sal.
I just really like what you said there about the leadership bit, because I think, we've talked about in other sessions that leadership is about, or it could be perceived as somebody who's got direct reports, that you can only be in that leadership space if that's the case. But I think what we're highlighting here is leadership is about behaviours and how you show up. And Nicola is demonstrating that, which is really important. But I think the other bit, and maybe it's just, again, I'm feeling a bit personal today about kind of how it relates to me, but I think sometimes as a woman, you can see as being a bit over emotional, or like, true. Thanks, Paul. Straight in there. True, Phil, yeah.
That was terrible. That was terrible. I apologise profusely. I should have said I would agree have been better. I'm not now sure. I'm questioning everything I say now, Sally.
So would you ever take
what you are saying?
You said, Paul, or know what I was saying about you?
I would. How do you restart a podcast?
No, I'm only teasing, but I do think we've already kind of alluded to the fact that probably clarity is important here. What I'd encourage Nicola to do is to, so some, and it's not in all cases, but I've had it happen to me, particularly as I've worked in the HR field, and it's typically, I've had one situation where I really didn't click with a colleague. And it's a bit like, well, you're both women, or it's typical, you can't sort it out. And I know it's slightly different here because it's Harry and Nicola, but I just think maybe just getting her thoughts on paper, what is she really wanting to get across? What's the message? How does she want to position it? And gathering her thoughts will mean that she'll probably come across with much more impact around what she wants to say. So just that emotional aspect, and just being mindful of it.
Yeah. And that's what I was agreeing with, Sally, is
good.
that is absolutely fundamentally true. I think that does happen. And it's such a lame excuse to say things like, oh, well, this happens. Whether you're talking about stereotypes of women or men or anything else, right? It's lame. It's not good enough to say, oh, well, this kind of stuff does happen. Never mind that. It is happening. How do we fix it? Actually, is what we've got to address. We can't just put it down to that and simply shrug our shoulders and say, oh, let's just carry on. It's creating a problem here where Nicola is now anonymously writing into a podcast because she needs the help. It's bothering her to that extent. We can't just simply shrug our shoulders here.
Yeah. And to both Ant and Sally's point, the giving that feedback and having that conversation and the preparing to have that conversation is really key in this scenario, because it is right for Nicola to do it. You know, as Ant says, leadership is a mindset. She's stepping into this, which is amazing. And actually, from experience, this is a tougher conversation to have than when you're actually in a leadership role and you're having it with someone who reports into you, because you've not got that. You're on level playing fields from a power point of view, as Sally said. So fair play for Nicola. Like, if she's going to go for this, fair play. It's tough.
Thinking about leaders as well, it's not assuming that we know his intent behind his behavior.
Good point.
So, I think she could come at this from initially a curious, judgmental bit to go, help you understand why you don't do that. And if it is just, I really don't like it and I can't be bothered, well, that's a different conversation, isn't it? It's like, well, actually, it's part of your job, whether you like it or not. And here's the impact on me when you don't do that. Let's not get to the stage where I have to raise it to our boss. Or actually, she might come at it and go, help you understand that. And she learns something and goes, oh, I blame that frame of reference.
Yeah.
And just for argument's sake, you could go, they both now can go to their boss and go, we don't think we should be doing this bit of our job at all, because actually it's not adding value.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that then. Thinking about recommended treatment here for Nicola, what can/should she do with this? I think there's a big piece around that peer-to-peer element, isn't there? We've talked a little bit around the priorities and identifying some of those things which are really important. What's urgent, what's important, etc. But in terms of engaging with Harry and talking to Harry, laying this on the table, what's the approach there, do you think? What kind of thing does she need to do to try and get this right and move it forward with some progress? Go on, Sal.
So I think I go back to my point. So again, because I think this feels very relatable, because I've been in a similar situation, so that she stays really grounded and really confident in what she wants to say. And I think, building on some of the points that you've raised, I take the time to kind of prepare for that conversation. So think about what exactly is bothering me, so I could be really specific. What's the impact it's currently having on me or the team? And to your points about kind of, why do I think this bit's particularly important? Is it because it relates to the plan or whatever it might be? What do I want out of the conversation? Maybe a little bit like you said, Ant, what assumptions am I maybe making about Harry? And, I need to put that down. And how do I want to show up in the conversation? Do I want to come across as calm, curious, flexible? Because I think if you take the time to do that, it will have a huge impact on how you then come to that conversation. I think sometimes, again, relating it to myself, I used to get so worked up, I just spit something out or make a bit of a arsey or sarcastic comment and not really prepare in a way that would have kept me in a good place. So that would be mine.
I think that's great. And just on that, I don't know if you've come across this before, people probably have, but I love this 6-point approach to having these kind of conversations. And it starts with saying, when you do this, or when you said that, that's the first point. So you're setting a very specific time and moment of when this has happened. When you did, or when you said, the second stage is then saying, I feel. So how you feel because of what somebody has done. So Sally, when you interrupted me, I felt, and you explain what the feeling is. The third stage is then to say, because, so you explain why you feel what you feel. I felt silenced and or whatever it might be, depending on the situation. The fourth stage is then to say, I'd prefer if you did this. The fifth stage is to say, because, again, to explain why you'd prefer that. And then the sixth stage, my favorite bit, is then to say, how do you feel about that? Is to then invite the other person to share how they feel. And what I love about this really simple 6-pronged approach is it validates feeling and it encourages people to express how they feel without saying one feeling is right or wrong. It just simply says, I feel this, and here's why I feel it. So if we could do something else, that would be great. How do you feel about that? And invites them to contribute. And hopefully that opens up dialogue, which is ultimately what you're looking for, rather than, as Nicola's raised, the confrontation that we really want to avoid.
Yeah.
That's a
And
cool model, Has.
that's a really, I've just made my notes. I think it's really good as well, because it's the self-awareness piece, isn't it? Because Harry's been so open about the fact he is how he is, he's maybe not realizing the impact, and the because bit helps you understand how it's landing for someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bit we sometimes don't always get or notice or know. So I think that's a really good.
And whenever I've used it, what I've and I've only been using it for the last sort of 12 months or so, but what I've recognized is when I prepare to have the conversation with somebody, it causes me to be very specific first. When you do this, as opposed to going in and emotion getting the better of me in the conversation, and I rabbit on and say 101 different things, and the person is just very confused, but clearly can see that I'm quite agitated. Instead of that, it's a bit more coherent, hopefully, by saying, when you do this, or when you said that, or perhaps in Nicola's case, when you don't do this, I feel like this because of such and such a thing.
And
it starts with that self-leadership, doesn't it? That self-sort of about that, taking control of yourself first, and what mindset you're in and how you're going to show up. Because that's the first thing in leadership, isn't it? Managing yourself first, that emotional intelligence.
Definitely. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to ask a challenge question to her, because I think, look, in a lot of cases, what we've talked about will help kind of reduce the potential conflict. But what if Harry kicks off? What if he starts to say, sorry, I don't see it like that, and, it gets quite tricky?
I think
what would you do in that scenario?
I mean, you want to listen to him, wouldn't you? You want to hear him out. Yeah. I think part of me would want to use a bit of that framework back with him. So tell me about what it is you feel and why you feel it. And there's discipline in that, because of course, when anyone ever says anything to you which contradicts your belief or your position, we immediately feel like we have to defend.
Yeah.
And I think the better response is just to listen and recognize this isn't always a personal attack. It doesn't cost me anything to hear them out. Doesn't cost me anything to just listen to them, to hear what they've got to say. And if I completely disagree for 101 different reasons, I can say I disagree, and maybe I can say some of those reasons. You just keep the dialogue going, and listening to each other is critical. And I think you can hold the control of the conversation by demonstrating a willingness to listen. I think that's really key.
Yeah, definitely. You don't have to go to the mattresses straight away, do we? Just because somebody disagrees with us. Yeah, I just sometimes say, help me understand.
Yeah.
I think it's good to talk this through, though, because I think sometimes people are worried about what happens if it does get a bit tricky. What do I do then? These are all great preparation, but in the moment. But I think that being curious, asking questions back, noticing, calling out, look, it seems like you're really angry about this, or, is this a good time? Should we reconvene? I think those are all things that can help you in the moment where you might feel a bit wobbly. Dan,
yes.
Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's okay as well as the disagreements, because but there will need to come a point where, for the sake of the team and what they're trying to achieve, there's going to have to be compromise, or there's going to have to be collaboration. Probably better word to use. And that might mean taking that discussion to their line manager, and not in a he said, she said kind of way. If I was running a team and two of my direct reports came to me and said, listen, we're at a bit of a standstill, standpoint. Standoff. Thank you. Standoff. Thank you. Bit of a standoff here. I believe this. Nicola believes this. Harry believes this. We've spoken it through. We both understand each other's positions on it, but we still don't agree.
Yeah.
We need your help in this to mediate or to get us through it, and to just provide your context on what you think needs to be done best for the role.
Yeah.
If somebody came to me and I'm like, that's amazing, let me help.
Yeah.
Let me help. But also I'd be thanking them for taking this such a professional approach with it, instead of them coming to me and saying, oh, Harry's not doing his job. He needs to get his finger out. That I think it seems like a really nice way to get this resolved if needs be. So you've almost got this polite escalation. That's probably the way I would define it.
And there's nothing wrong, is there? There's nothing wrong with saying, if you're struggling to reach that agreement, you've got these, two polar opposite views of where people share what they think and what they feel. There's no immediate agreement. There's nothing wrong with simply saying, okay, let's just take a little bit of time away from it then. Let's sleep on it even. Let's come back to it tomorrow or next week or whenever is appropriate without it festering too long, just to give a bit of breathing space and a bit of time to clear heads, simply because so often in those moments, the emotion takes over, rational thought starts to seep away, and then it becomes very difficult to think clearly. And I think that's a wise thing. I remember being talked about this when I got married, and we were advised as newly married couples to air things, but then also to take time away in order to give yourself a bit of breathing space. That doesn't mean move out, by the way, or anything like that. It just, it's just give a bit of breathing room. And I think the same applies in situations like this, working with peers.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what we said earlier about leadership, to your point, Dan, that the fact that they're acting in that way and trying to find a resolution, having healthy debate, that's a sign of a high performing team. We're not just being polite here. We want to get to high performance. Therefore, we need to have some of these difficult conversations. That to me is an example of great leadership as well.
But what about the preventative care then? How do you avoid this sort of situation arising? Dan, you mentioned about, if you're leading team and you got two people coming to you, how do we avoid having these sorts of issues? Are there steps that we can take so that they happen far less frequently, if at all?
I think the first step is expectations. So Harry and Nicola need to be really clear on what their expectations of the role are. Now, whether that's them probing for more questions from their side to understand their role and their responsibilities, or it's their leader being clear on what they're going after as a team and what their what's in the job description, basically what they're supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis. I think that's key, because I think if we'd got that earlier on and Nicola knew what she was doing, Harry knew what he was doing, I don't think this happens. I don't think it gets there at all.
Okay.
Yeah. I building on that, I think a little bit again what we've talked about earlier, that the relationships are really key in any team, aren't they? They can be a real drag or a real accelerator of performance, and therefore I think maybe some proactive time on, as well as the expectations, what behaviors or ways of working do we want to have as a team? How do we surface disagreements, or some of these kind of key questions up front? They might be great ones to talk a little bit more about the how and how we want to operate together, because I think then everybody would feel that they've had a voice in that conversation, and then again, as part of team meetings, you're not just reviewing the and the task and what you've done. We could say, look, how are we getting on? Is everybody clear? How are we surfacing issues? They could talk about that as well as what they're doing. So I think that needs that balance of conversation.
Yeah, having an agreed approach to conflict, I think, is a really good idea. Just to simply say, if we've got issues, how do we handle them? How do we agree and commit to handling them as a team, regardless of what they are? It doesn't mean it's going to always be plain sailing and very smooth in ironing out some of those issues. But if we can agree that this is the approach, i.e., let's be adult about it, let's be civil, let's give each other a chance to speak, let's not interrupt or speak over one another. All those little things, if we can agree to that, then surely it makes it a lot easier. So stitching up, how do we? How would you summarize? What would you advise Nicola to do here, or anyone else listening who's in a similar boat, with maybe first steps, immediate things that need to be addressed? And what's coming to mind for you as you look at this?
I think start with that self-leadership first, just to kind of figure out why is this an issue for her. And I think Sal made some good points earlier on about just understanding some of them, asking yourself some of those questions first, so that you go in having done a bit of your self-work before you start trying to work on him.
Right. Love it. Sally, what about you?
Yeah, I think the preparation is key. The real, like I said, as Ant's talk about that self-reflection and being clear, how do you want to show up in that conversation? Be really clear on that, because I think, again, that'll help better align you and ground you if you know yourself how you want to be in that conversation.
Okay, Dan?
I think I'd agree with both Sal and Anton. Prepare for the conversation, reflect on how you're feeling, how you're going to show up, a bit of the self-emotional intelligence, prepare for the conversation and be really clear about what you want out of that conversation. And as we discussed before, even prepare for if it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go, what you're going to do next. So almost have in your mind, what would the next step be if needs to be happened.
And I think I'm going to cement all of that by saying my advice to you, Nicola, is have the conversation.
Yes,
right. You've spent long enough now where this has bothered you and it's played on your mind. We now need to have that conversation. So if necessary, put time in the diary for you and Harry to meet, so you've got something to work towards, to prepare for, so there's far less chance of backing out, avoiding it, dumbing it down, hiding it away, that sort of thing. It needs to be addressed now. Something to do. Yeah, Sally.
Sorry, I just thought of a last point as you were saying that. I think where you do it might be important. This comes down to knowing your individual, but that might be, they might be in the car together. They might, be in a team where that happens, or they might be able to go on a walk. I think sometimes not making it sitting over the desk and quite formal can help. So I just would give some thought to how you want to prepare, but also where might be the best environment to have that conversation. Or take them out for a coffee, or again, it all depends on your context and your environment. But I think, driving in
neutral
the car,
ground's good, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that helps conversations as well.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, we'll draw to a close there, and we draw to a close season 1, series 1 of the Leadership Surgery. When we started this idea of a podcast, we said to ourselves, didn't we, that we would do, let's commit to doing 10 episodes and see how we go and see how we feel. And I think I speak for everyone when I'd say we've really enjoyed doing this. We've really enjoyed having the conversations. I think we've all been learning bits and pieces as we do them as well, not least from each other, but also from the very situations that people have raised and brought to our attention, which has been extremely helpful and insightful. So thank you to everyone that's done that so far, and to everyone that's liked, subscribed, and continued to listen. We are committing to season 2. We are going to come back for season 2.
We are.
We're going to take a break for the summer, right? Because we all need a summer break. I think that's fair to say, and then we can return in the autumn with maybe there's another 10 scenarios for us to tackle. And if anyone, therefore, has things that you'd like us to explore, use the email us, theleadershipsurgery@gmail.com. Continue to comment on our different social platforms where you can engage with us as well. We'd love to hear from you. We would love to tackle the pain points that you are experiencing. And thank you once again for all your continued support and encouragement. Guys, we'll sign off and say have a great summer, I think.
Have a great summer.
Cheers, guys. Have a great summer.
Enjoy all.
Bye.